Alright, today we're going to take a look at this fantastic budget 85mm 1.8 lens sent to me by Yongnuo for free to test and review. It costs only $294 and has fantastic build quality, great autofocus performance, razor sharp image quality, and an f1.8 aperture, which delivers fantastic bokeh and subject separation. In my opinion, the 85mm focal length is very versatile. It's best suited for portraits and product photography, or when you need to easily separate the subject from the background, but it also works really well for landscapes and general photography. In today's video, I'm going to test out the Yongnuo 85mm 1.8 E-mount version with my Sony ZV-E1, but it's also available for Nikon and, as far as I know, Canon. With that said, let's start with the design and build quality. This is the updated Yongnuo 85mm 1.8, which has much better build quality than the previous version. It's now completely made of metal with a metal mount and a rubber gasket for weather sealing. The size of this lens is very compact. It's pretty much the same size as my Sony 35mm 1.8, which is very compact. It has a 58mm filter thread, goes from f1.8 to f16 and weighs only 387 grams. Unfortunately, it doesn't have an aperture ring, but it does have a costume function button, an autofocus manual focus switch, and a USB-C port for firmware upgrades. The focus ring on this lens is pretty big and very smooth, though a bit loose compared to my Zeiss 85mm 1.8. However, the focus throw is very short, which is nice if you want to quickly manually focus from your subject to the background. The minimum focus distance is 80 centimeters, which is typical for this focal length, but compared to my Zeiss 85mm 1.8, which has the same minimum focus distance, it focuses slightly closer, and I'm happy to say that it does so without any loss of sharpness. As for autofocus, from my experience with this lens, the autofocus is really reliable for photography and videography. I couldn't really notice a significant difference compared to my native Sony lenses. It grabs focus really quickly without any focus hunting, except for when shooting in poorly lit conditions, but that's to be expected. And also, it doesn't produce any noise when autofocusing. However, a couple of times I had a weird issue with this lens where the autofocus or manual focus did not respond at all, even when turning the focus ring. I could switch the focus from manual to auto and the camera would recognize it, but it would not respond to it at all until I reset the camera. I'm not really sure why it happened. My guess is because there was some communication issue between the lens and the camera, but it never really happened to me with any other lens I have tried, so that's definitely something to consider before buying this lens. Anyway, as for focus spreading, this lens doesn't perform the best. It's very noticeable on the sides of the frame, so if you're a fan of doing focus pulling or stacking shots, this might not be the best option for you. Now let's talk about optical performance, which is exactly where this lens exceeded my expectations. I wasn't expecting much for $300, but I was pleasantly surprised. This lens is really sharp, starting at f1.8, especially in the center. The center sharpness of this lens at f1.8 is exceptional. According to my tests, it's even sharper in the center than my Zeiss 85mm 1.8, which is 4 times the price, and that says a lot. And if you don't trust me, DxOMark, one of the most reputable websites in terms of lens testing, says it's one of the sharpest 85mm E-mount lenses they've used, and I completely agree. It does have very soft corner sharpness compared to the more expensive lenses, but the center sharpness is unreal for the price. Furthermore, the color reproduction of this lens is very neutral, especially when compared to my Zeiss 85mm 1.8, which has a warm yellow/green look to it. And from my tests, this lens doesn't have significant fringing, chromatic aberration, or flare issues. In some situations, it might be noticeable, but it didn't affect me when using it in the real world. However, it does suffer from heavy vignetting, especially at f1.8, but it's also also noticeable when stopping down even at f5.6, and it has a small amount of pincushion distortion, but that's easily correctable in post. Finally, in terms of bokeh performance, I think it performs really well. It delivers very creamy bokeh results. Here you can see how it looks compared to the Zeiss 85mm 1.8 at f1.8. There's definitely a difference, but it's not that significant, especially when considering the price. All in all, I highly recommend this lens, especially if you're on a budget. I don't think you'll be able to find an 85mm Sony lens that has a better price to performance ratio than this lens. Anyway, thanks for watching, and if you want me to send you some raw files I shot with my Sony ZV-E1 with this lens to test and review before buying this lens, let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.